Greetings, everybody. It's Blair Johnson with the Badass Records podcast. Welcoming you to another installment of the show. New episodes drop Thursday mornings. Audio can be found wherever you stream your music and your podcasts. Videos on YouTube, and all of those goodies are embedded in the site badassrecordspodcast.com. If you or someone you know is interested in joining me for an episode or would be a good candidate, hit me up at badassrecordspodcast@gmail.com and keep tabs on the program via the socials, Twitter and Instagram. Last but not least, if you feel inclined to support the show, make sure you check out the merch tab on the website. Get yourself a hoodie, a coffee mug, a baseball cap, a sticker, whatever floats your boat. That's all I got for you today. Appreciate you stopping by. Hope you enjoy the show.
Yeah.
Damon Arredondo, right? Arredondo? How am
Yeah.
What's the
Arredondo, but in here it's Arredondo.
Arredondo?
Yep.
Damon Arredondo. Episode 118, Badass Records podcast. Rizoma owner.
Yep.
Rizoma is or is not all caps?
It is not all caps.
It is not all caps. I saw it. I've been seeing.
Our logo is.
Okay.
But,
Okay. That's why.
Yeah.
Nerd language guy. In all my notes, it's in all caps because I was like, I don't want to have it wrong in my notes.
Yeah.
Cheers. Thank you for being here. If you need.
I'm good.
You're good.
I'm
Okay.
good, yep.
So, RizomaLiquidCreations.com is the website for your brewery, essentially,
Yeah,
right?
beer company.
Beer company.
Yeah.
You got Facebook and an Instagram. And I crossed your path via an Instagram post by The Pitch.
Oh, yeah.
Which led me to a story by Maddie McBratney.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you don't mind, I'd love for you to tell me a little bit about getting this thing off the ground.
Yeah, it's been a long process of getting off the ground and still trying. But it's Rizoma Liquid Creations, Kansas City's first Latino-owned beer company. It's about 3 years in the making so far.
Okay.
My journey of getting my own beer company going is probably about 7-8 years.
No kidding.
Yeah, it's we're trying to maintain intentionality of being a Latino business, Latino-owned. We want to be a platform for people to share their stories and really just kind of build a community of just celebrating diversity and the diversity within the Latino community and all. I grew up in the Northland and
Born and raised Parkville, right?
Born and raised, yeah. And I was more or less like one of the most brown kids and Mexican last name. Culturally didn't grow up with it, but definitely had some experiences because of my last name and how much darker I was and everything. And just never felt a part of it, a part of the community as much, and definitely knew there was more out there.
Sure.
And then just growing up and then eventually entering the beer industry. It's a very white male industry, and never really saw people that look like me, and not that I could blend in pretty much anywhere, but I just kind of knew, there's room for more, and so from the get-go, I was like, I really want to do a beer company that I could feel comfortable in, with people that look like me or just share the same values and all that stuff. And it's been a long journey. We currently don't have a location. We're looking, I'm creating, talking to business or potential partners and other stuff. But in the meantime, We just released a collaboration with Casey Beer Co.
Yeah. Okay, so so the box.
Yeah, yeah.
You brought, I just saw that and I'm like, maybe I'll have a beer, maybe I won't. Then I was like, wait a minute, are your beers in that box?
Right. So it's right now it's called Neo Mexicanus Wit.
Which is or is not a Belgian.
It is a Belgian. A wit is a Belgian style. It means white.
Yeah, and I don't like Belgian beers at all, but this is tasty.
Thank you. Yeah.
Why? Why is that?
Because we threw a bunch of hops in. That's one. Okay. So the Neo Mexicanus actually is like the scientific name of a particular type of hop that is indigenous to like the highlands of New Mexico.
Cool.
And so these hops, now super domesticated, probably don't even resemble what the hops originally look like, but they have lineage from those. And so for us, being a Latino brand and trying to elevate stories from indigenous and just people of Central and North, just the Americas in particular, not exclusively, but with these hops, it kind of ties into the storyline.
Okay, so you don't have a location, but you have to make beer somewhere.
Right. So we're doing collaborations right now.
Exclusively.
Because
you need people's gear and space.
Yeah. I mean, pretty much. It's
not only.
Right.
Collaborations are amazing in and of themselves, but
right.
It's dual purpose serving.
It is, because for a while we had beer in market, but...
What does that mean?
So we were contract brewing. We paid somebody to produce our product, and I had distributed it, had it in market, but due to certain circumstances, money that's owed to us that we're not going to get and other stuff, we no longer are going through this producer. And to produce beer, you can't just make it, because it is a regulated substance in a regulated industry. There's a lot more rules. It's more capital intensive. So there are a lot of barriers to it, which is another reason for craft beer generally being a monoculture in terms of white male, very privileged entry because of the cost of capital. Got to have a beard and flannel.
Yeah, exactly. Trucker ball cap.
Yep.
Glasses that look ridiculous for no reason.
Yeah. That there is a uniform, but it's changing. But yeah, so we had some stuff in market, and just the cost of entry and other stuff has been a barrier. And our intentionality of being a brewery, not exclusively, but ownership of color, majority, and maintaining that, brings some barriers and access to less capital and other things. So that's been a limitation also for me.
So same exact idea, same exact business plan. White dude goes in to ask for capital versus you. Chances of white dude getting it is higher.
Yeah, generally. Yeah.
And I mean, why? Like, what is like? You think about asking for capital. It's got a formula that you hammer out on a calculator, and it tells you yes or no. That says to me that people are like literally off of appearance.
Yes, and some for some people, yes.
That's crazy.
What I would also say is right now, because it's essentially just me. I do have another business partner, but he's the art creative.
Okay.
But he's not a day-to-day. He's not an operation. So it's just me doing all the operations. So
i.e. logos and branding?
Yeah, so he's done a lot
digital.
of that.
Okay.
Right. And so for me, I'm struggling, struggling entrepreneur, trying to make ends meet and stuff. And so energetically, I also just trying to have the bandwidth to get this up and running. I do handyman work right now because the beer industry, craft beer industry can't I can't get paid.
Yeah.
Even being a head brewer for someone else, because I need to make more than 42,000. I'm a single dad. Got my daughter half the time, but dad 100% of the time. And it's hard. And so trying to make ends meet plus get this expensive beer company off the ground, and I'm paying for all of it, and it's hard, and I don't have a partner to kind of join in. And so part of my journey right now is really trying to find the right partner, and where some of the limitations around being intentionally a Latino beer company is trying to find a business partner who is Latino, or from a underrepresented community partner,
Okay.
and in an end to come into an industry that there's very very few, means I have to go outside of craft beer to find a potential partner. And there isn't the knowledge base among potential investors and other stuff from these communities of color, underrepresented communities who know craft beer and are excited about it. And locally, what I'm finding too is with how big tech has grown, there's definitely been a shift in expectation of investment. And so with the tech world, it's you invest money in it, and within a couple of years, you potentially could hit $1 billion buyout or whatever it is, which is a reality in tech. But craft
Talking
beer,
about beer, yeah.
yeah, craft beer, it's like,
Have you met Nigel Woodbury?
oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I know Nigel.
He did an episode.
I saw that.
Okay,
yeah, I almost
he's
joined.
all about
Or listened.
black beer and black owned beer, and
Yeah.
can't talk enough about. Sorry, the name of the festival. I think it's just about to happen, or it happens every year in like Pennsylvania.
Oh yeah,
And it's the big black owned beer brewery festival, and
yeah. I'm drawing a blank on it right now, but yeah, Vine Street's going to be at it, and he's actually hosting a film fest, and so I'll give them a little shout at Vine Street in a few weeks. They're hosting a black-owned beer company out of California called Crown and Hops.
nice.
Those owners are coming into town and doing a collaboration, and then going to host it. It's one pint at a time, and it's a documentary on breweries of color.
Cool.
And it's been on kind of the film circuit for a couple of years now. I actually saw the release of it a couple of years ago. I was a part of the Brewers Association Diversity Committee, and was there with the other committees and watched the release of this.
Cool.
And it's really good, and it's worth going and checking out Vine Street. If for all you listeners out there, it's definitely worth going.
This collaboration with Casey Beer Co.
Yeah.
Is new-ish.
It is, yeah. So a week ago, we released it out of their tap room. You could only get this beer at Casey Beer Co. right now.
Okay.
It'll be around probably for another month.
Okay.
I'm trying to talk to them and see if I could get another batch going for us to get some product out in the market. But I reached out to Beer Co. One, because I know them.
Okay. My
two,
next question was going to be, how do you know where to start? But you know them, so
I know them, and a few of them really know my journey, and they want to support us.
Cool.
And also, they're one of the better, most consistent breweries in the city. And so, for me, doing collaborations, this is essentially my recipe. So I want to work with a brewery who does high quality beer, so that I can kind of work on my recipes a little bit on a quality brew system with somebody who knows how to make beer to the quality that I can make.
So if you collaborate with a brewer, you're going in there and cranking some stuff out yourself.
Yeah, I mean,
at least for like a test run or two
exactly,
or whatever. Okay,
exactly. And so this beer coming out and at the release party, it was an opportunity for me to invite and bring potential investors and people I've been communicating with that said, "Hey, try this beer. This is a product that I can and will make whenever we get a physical location." And so it's, I would say, with how the industry's kind of gone, craft beer's changing a little bit. It's consolidating. People are getting into, seltzers have been out for a while now,
Mm-hmm.
but RTDs, which are ready to drinks, so like canned cocktails, stuff like that, is becoming much bigger. So it's kind of cutting into beer, which is why our name, Rizoma Liquid Creations, we want to produce other types of products.
Cool.
We want to be a beverage company.
Yeah. David, I'm a big stand-up comedy fan. Dave Attell has a Netflix special that came out today, and Brian Simpson actually just put one out too, and it's fantastic. And Dave Attell, I started watching his a few minutes before you got here, and he's I see everybody's got their drinks, and I'm glad to see that. There's one drink that I don't really like to see, and that's the White Claw, because White Claw is a gateway drug to a soft penis. I mean, if you want to spend an evening listening to apologies and this never happens to me, then have yourself a couple White Claws. Anyway.
That's funny. David Tell, I'm going to write that one down.
Well, you know who he is?
Oh, I know who he is. Okay. Yeah, I didn't know he was having another Netflix special come out.
Only 40 minutes, which,
I appreciate the short ones.
I want the big guns are doing a special every other year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So give me 60 minutes, because I know I'm going to wait 24 months for the next one,
Yeah, but there's so many coming out now. It's okay.
It's a good age. Yeah. Brian Simpson is in and around Austin, and frequently. This is actually filmed at the Mothership, which is Joe Rogan's comedy store.
Okay.
So Brian has been. I mean, I've kind of over the last 5 years watched him. Like, I remember seeing him do 15 minutes on as part of a special collaboration, and then he's got a half hour, and so I've kind of just watched it, and I bet he was so jazzed for this special to come out, and then finds out it's basically dropping on the same day as Dave Attell's, who I don't know if Dave Attell's ever done a Netflix special.
Yeah,
he had to have been like, fuck,
yeah.
But his special is like really funny,
I bet.
and an hour and 10 minutes. So,
nice.
Nevertheless, when I first went to the website, I saw El Sol, Latin American Ale, and La Luna, Latin American Amber Ale. So those I thought were your two offerings.
Yeah. So those we had in market.
Okay.
And those are the things. So we had them produced. There was a product that I had gotten to a distributor and ended up getting infected. And so it got to a distributor. I was looking, hey, we got this product. We got a producer looking to, get it out there. And this is one of the downsides of contract brewing is you're not in charge of your own quality.
I was going to say, this is a quality control. You're testing something
after
the fact, and you find out it's been compromised.
Yeah, and you don't know it until after a certain amount of time, it's bacteria or something. Yeah, and so we had it to a distributor
to be buying.
So this particular batch we ended up like pulling off, which is a loss, in cost. But one of the worst parts was that we got it to a distributor and said, "Hey, here's a product." They got a bad product, and now we potentially burn that bridge, right? And so. And it's hard for me who I know how to, I would say my skill is in larger production, quality, consistent product.
Okay.
I came up in more production brewing, less small specialty brewing. And so my skill set is definitely in making good quality, consistent product, clean product. And those are the types of beers I want to do is just good, easy drinking, simple, don't overcomplicate it, balanced beer. So anyway, and not even necessarily at the fault of the brewery. It's what happened. But I now need to be much more strict about the products that I get in the market. If I don't have my own brewery, where I would be in control of all these things. Now, I have to rely on other people, so I need to make sure that I have a consistent quality producer who could put beer in 12-ounce cans. And that's been really hard to find locally because the market just doesn't really have that. And with the consolidation of the beer market, some of these breweries who I speak with, they're not incentivized to produce our product because we could potentially be taking away their
market share.
And I could argue whether we would or not because we are a little more niche-y, a little different. But that's their concern, and I totally get it. And it just makes it harder to find a producer who can make beer for us, especially a quality producer.
So those two were also collaborations?
Previously, those were not collaborations. That was contract brewing, where we paid for all the ingredients, paid for everything for our branded product. This collaboration is a Casey Beer Co. / Rizoma branded collaboration. And if you go on our Instagram or Facebook, you'll see we have a bunch of posts on it. On the beer label, it has our two logos side by side. Yeah. So it's equal.
It screams collaboration.
Totally.
Like equal partnership-ish kind of.
Yeah. Anyway. We make no money on it right now, but...
break even?
No.
Oh, man.
No. It's for Beer Co., what we really get out of it is, one, my recipe in particular. I would say 90% of it is my recipe because I don't know their brew system, and every brew system's different. So I said, here's what I want, here's the recipe. They had to make a few adjustments just to make it kind of fit their brew system.
Okay.
But we came up with the logo or the branding and everything on it. But like I said, it's an opportunity not just to get our beer taste out there to potential investors and potential customers. It's also to get our logo and our brand and our recognition out there. So we're kind of riding Casey Beer Co.'s coattails a little bit. They're big. They've got a huge following.
Yeah.
People know them for certain quality. So for us, it's an aligning with another brand who's a progressive brand. They're good people. They really care about quality product, which is what I personally like. There's really...
You can see this will, in some way or another, generate value moving forward, but your dad would be like, I'm not seeing it.
Exactly.
Like, where's the right?
Yeah, and that's the thing is I do need in some of these it's hard because culturally within craft beer collaborations there's no real revenue sharing. It's if you collaborate with the brewery, they get the money, and then if you have a brewery, then you invite them and you do a collaboration, then you get the money. Or if you have a tap room, you say, we'll buy half that beer and we'll sell it at our tap room too. But we don't have that. So right now it's, can I borrow or can I get your guys' sales report once you run out? And can I show how well it's sold in your tap room? And then me go to potential investors and say, hey, look, this is how our beer sold in their tap room. The type of beer I would brew would be similar-ish.
Was that an ask for this collaboration?
Yes.
And they were like, absolutely?
Yeah.
Wow. So you need nice folks.
I do. I need nice folks and people who aren't threatened by us doing a collaboration with them or anything. I mean, we also did a food special on that night. And they sold through the special, and that was one of the first times they've sold in a day. And so we definitely brought people, we brought excitement and stuff. So they benefited a lot from
How much lead time was there to market this and put it out there?
We push it for about a month.
Okay.
And
do you find that's sufficient?
Yeah, I would say so.
Like 6 weeks, then folks are like, oh, it seems far away. But if it's 2 weeks, then people are like, oh, I didn't know about it until after it happened.
Yeah, there's kind of a sweet spot. So a month was close. We really pushed the last few weeks. One of the things with events is people don't decide whether they're going oftentimes, especially if it's a non-ticketed event or something. People don't decide that they're going until like
day of
48 to 24 hours before.
Yeah. Because can you fit it? Is it worth it to fit it in? Like,
exactly.
Single, I have half custody, but I'm a dad full time.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And a lot of other things, parenting related on my plate. And if a thing crops up, it's kind of like, I could see that could work.
Yeah.
And then it's like,
yeah.
Do I really? I really wanted to when I saw it. Now I'm just tired. Or I've been busy. Whatever.
Yeah.
There's a million.
Yeah. Or I have my kid and it's like today they just don't have the capacity for it, and you need to do what's best for your kid.
Yep.
And so, yeah, as a parent, there's a lot of canceling last minute for things because people just need to rest or whatever.
Yeah. Reset.
Yeah. And so, so with this collaboration, there were definitely some really important people for us and potential brewery. It was important that some of these people showed up, tasted the product, and so I'm going around shaking hands, kissing babies, doing whatever to, make sure people get the full story on what this is and what we're trying to do. I think I need to do a little better at maybe working with the breweries and saying, is there a way we can get a little bit out of this? Because right now I have $47 in our Rizoma account to figure shit out.
Pennies.
Yeah.
I'll take hard. Pennies on the pint,
Yeah, that's it. We just need to, like getting that sales report is really important for us to show people, look, it is selling. This is a type of product that people want.
And so there was a food special at Casey Beer Co. and it sold out?
Yeah.
And who created this food special?
So I worked with the chef, but they were like, what kind of food do you want? I'm like, well, here's something that sounds really good to me. And actually it was the food special that got me the most excited because I'm like, I know beer. I'm confident about my recipes and stuff. My entire adult life has been that. But doing kind of a food special that like matches the beer and you can kind of nerd out a little bit on that. Like that got me the most excited. It was a chorizo sausage with, what was it? I'm drawing a blank. Anyways,
that's okay. I mean,
chimichurri and like the Mexican pickled onion on it, and a little like Mexican coleslaw on the side, and an Argentinian bread pudding.
What?
It was freaking delicious. It was like one of the best things I ever had.
What?
And it paired really well with the beer and.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, and so the beer, I'm going to talk a little bit about that. It's a Belgian wit, which we had talked about, base style. Generally, you put coriander and orange peel in it.
Yeah.
We didn't put any of that in there.
Blue Moon.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Blue Moon, one of the best-selling beers.
It was the first one, a lot of time in 20 years in the restaurant industry, and a lot of it was brew pub, but it was the first one where it's like they're garnishing that with an orange.
Yeah, anyway. Yeah, and Blue Moon was one of the first, I call them gateway beers, that gets people into craft beer.
Okay.
You get a lot of, because it was a little sweeter and it had a little more flavor, but it wasn't bitter or anything. It was a good entry into beer outside, like to get people out of domestic beer drinking. Yeah. And so, I credit, it was a Miller Coors brand, but I credit them for really building the craft beer market.
And taking a chance.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And so people know that flavor still. They know that that style has kind of died a bit, but I didn't add as much fruity character and stuff that you would typically do. So this beer's a little drier than the typical one. It's a little more acidic, which gives almost a quenching character. We added more hops, but low on the bitterness scale. So it's not very bitter. It's got a little more hop aroma and very mild on the Belgian wit kind of esters, like the bubblegummy or the fruity, banana-y flavors. It's very light on that. It's very it's really good and refreshing for like a spring kind of sunny day, which we had a few days ago, and hopefully it'll come back soon. It's really good spring beer, light, easy drinking, 5%, 5 point.
I will never waste anybody's time, energy, or money by ordering or purchasing a Blue Moon. Yeah, but every once in a while, it's like this check-in with myself. If one is available and it's not going to cost anybody anything.
Yeah.
And nope, still
still exactly how I remember.
Yeah, just don't. No, they haven't changed. I haven't changed, and that's fine. That's all. But this is, I would, if this was a normal Belgian wit, and again, as the chef and kitchen manager and so forth at many brew pubs over many years, like when the Belgian thing really took off.
Yeah.
And I'm still, after my shift going for a lager or the same lager and the same Pilsner that I always do. They're like, you're a loser. And I'm like, I don't care. Like,
Yeah.
your approval as the brewer
You like what you like.
has no effect on me whatsoever. So you guys go 47 layers deep into the Belgian strain world and do your thing, and I'm gonna,
Yeah.
you know.
And I could go there too. I could totally nerd out with the most of them, and I could go much deeper than most. But at the same time, like, I just like a light, easy drinking beer. And my style is definitely so. I used to be the head brewer at Strange Days,
Okay.
and not when they opened, but for about 6 months after they opened, they needed a head brewer. I became a brewer for a few years and stuff, and I started really kind of dialing in my style, which was just lighter versions, more drinkable versions of some of these heavier beers. You know, you have these hazy IPAs and these thick things, and I would make them more drinkable. Still good flavor and stuff, but I wouldn't take all the flavor. I wouldn't take the bitterness. I wouldn't take the fruit. I wouldn't take it to a 10. I went for balance.
If I see, I'm going to be 50 this year. If I see a label, I'm picking out beer at the store or at a bar or whatever, that I don't recognize, but I know it says the style.
Yeah.
So, okay, I haven't checked out yet. Immediately, I'm going to the ABV.
Yeah. Okay,
And so you, like, 5 is kind of, this is 5.1, so I'll make an exception. But I mean, I see 6.75 and 7 and 10. I'm like, who's drinking this?
Yeah.
And like, I want to do something not called sleeping after I have one.
This is exactly, you are like my target customer.
Totally by accident.
Yeah. But I would say I've won more awards, like People's Choice Awards, than I have like beer industry awards, because for me it's like all about the balance, and it's about drinkability, and I want you to be able to drink two and be able to go on with your day, whatever you're doing. I don't want you to have to take a nap or feel full. That's one of the biggest things.
Start questioning your food intake for the day.
Exactly.
Should I go to Chipotle?
Yeah, or Taco Bell.
Yeah, Taco Bell.
Yeah. But I refer to Taco Bell as my my cleanse.
Right.
But it's, with beer, it's just, and for us is whenever we get our place and everything, it's not going to be about the alcohol. It's about just spending time with people. I say I even think these percentages are off, but 50% is what you drink, 50% who you drink with. But I actually think it's less. I think it's 25% what you drink, and the rest who you drink with, where you drink, stuff like that. But it's really about the environment and the people you spend time with. And for us, our story is really about the community aspect, bringing people together.
And to that end, there's a similar percentage for food, and you put a dish on a table in front of somebody, and whatever, I don't remember the numbers, but it's like 40% what it tastes like and 60% how it looks to the eye, and what the look like ramps up the taste. So there's that, and then for front of the house, two of the most important things that, again, you can't give it to a numbers guy and see, but if you haven't greeted somebody at the host stand within 2 minutes, you have lost them for the experience. Even if they stay, they're like, and then the other piece is the front of the house manager on duty touching every table.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to be a big ordeal. It just, hey, I'm Damon. I'm just making sure, is Steven or Mary, whoever that's taking care of you guys tonight, and how was the food, and thanks for coming in. And people fucking eat that shit up.
It builds loyalty and it builds appreciation because they feel appreciated, and that's something like I would get so frustrated, even if we were busy. Like I always tried getting the bar staff to like acknowledge the people at the door, like right when they walked in, as, hey, thanks for coming, we'll be with you in a second. If you do that, like that'll give you time.
Here's what happens, right? And I've worked with a lot of great bartenders that knew that and always did it and never deviated. If your bartender does that, you as your group, whether it's 2 of you or 10 of you, you can immediately resume being people and having the conversation, talking about the reason that you've come together, sharing stories of having been there before or how this other place down the street sucks and this place doesn't. Whereas if you don't get that, you're kind of like pretending to be people, but what's taking up most of your bandwidth is, does anybody even know we're here?
Yeah, and it totally makes them feel undervalued.
And it starts the checklist.
Yeah.
They took forever to greet us, and then they sat us, and our table was dirty for 6 minutes.
Yeah.
And then our server seemed like she was stoned or whatever. I mean,
yeah, and that judgment starts before they even come in. And so, it was something like, I'm trying to remember when I was in business school, we were talking about, the restaurant experience and stuff. And it's like within the first 3 seconds, people's minds are made up about a certain location. And then you have to like win them over.
Good luck.
Yeah. If it's a negative experience within 3 seconds, something like that, you now have to like really work to earn them. And so that's one thing that always stood in my mind is like, it's not hard to just acknowledge them. And that will open up the door for way more possibilities. And it makes people feel like they're a part of it again.
Yeah.
And so that's that community that's really important for me is like, it doesn't even have to be a hostess. And if somebody just sees you walk in, especially if it's not their job and they acknowledge you, it almost means more that I was noticed. And for us, it's just, I want that space. I want that welcoming. I want that, especially like those in the Latino community who go to craft breweries and they're like, okay, no one really looks like me, whatever. If they see a place that like reflects them,
they don't
and
have
their
Bud
culture,
Light.
yeah, exactly. We'll make our own. But there's a lot of opportunity there, and I know for me, as like selfishly, I just want that community, like I said, that I never felt like I had, and so for me, I just want a space that kind of reflects a place of inclusion and a place of my cultural diversity. I'm also part German, Italian, but I identify as Latino, and so it's like I want some of that diversity within my space and that other people can kind of identify with. And what I'll say too is as we've been getting articles out there and stuff, I've gotten contacted by, 20 people who've really identified with, I was too white for the Mexican community, too Mexican for the white community. I never had a place I really felt comfortable with.
Wow.
And them seeing and listening to the story. And for me, it's not just about that.
Yeah.
It could be somebody who's from Mexico, but maybe, their interests and stuff don't quite fit with their immediate community. And so for us is we want to just be a place where people can identify even a part of themselves and relate to some of it.
Cool.
And for us, it's not about us telling your story. We want to be a platform where other people can share their own stories. So what that looks like might be we'll have a QR code on the back of our regular products once we're able to get those again. And just have people telling their stories, how they identify, or, yeah, I'm Mexican American, my family's from here, and just start creating relatable stories that people can listen to and connect with.
So I buy a Rizoma Liquid Creations beer. There's a QR code. I take a picture. And it takes me to a form where I share something, and then that lives where?
Or vice versa. So it could be either it takes you to a forum and you could share your own story, or we create content of people just sharing their own stories. Maybe it's a video of like a business owner, let's say Mexican American or a queer Latino or Afro Latino.
Yeah.
And just for us, it's about showing the nuance and diversity within Latinism and Hispanic or however you identify.
Cool.
And because one thing for me too is like there's the perception of Hispanic means you're brown and you speak Spanish, and there's a million other variations, nuance.
Yeah.
And people don't know that, and it's just as diverse as American. That's me holding quotes up.
Yeah.
I know you can't see it, but
You're right there.
Okay, up there.
This lives in the video and the audio.
Oh, God. But, so you've seen me picking my nose this whole time.
No.
But, no, there's a lot of stories to be told by individuals. We don't want to be representative of. We just want to be a place where people can share.
Cool.
Because my experience is different than yours, so I shouldn't be sharing yours.
Right.
And that goes for anybody. It's you have your own experience. I trust yours. You're the best to tell your own story.
Yeah.
And that's what we want. And I know that seems nuanced and.
But a lot of life is nuanced.
Right.
And to ignore that is foolish.
Right.
Because it's not just cookie cutter stamp and, square peg, square hole. Like, nuance explains a lot of life.
We are individuals. We have individual experiences. But one of the best things about celebrating diversity is that we could connect on the emotional side.
Absolutely.
How you feel, the loneliness, the whatever. Joe Blow, white person over here, can still connect on an emotional side. It doesn't mean he knows your experiences. It doesn't mean he can relate to certain parts of it. But the loneliness or whatever it is that you're experiencing, everybody has felt
Which
those.
We'll get to, but it bears saying, I guess, ahead of time, is not... what I have become accustomed to associating with males in the Latin community. It is a very square peg, square hole, cut and dry, cookie cutter.
Machismo,
precisely, which we'll get into. But I'm glad you said that. Should we take 5 again? Are you good to keep rolling?
I'm good.
Okay.
Yep.
So born and raised Parkville, siblings.
Yeah, I have 3 other siblings.
Okay.
So I'm the third of 4. So I have middle child syndrome.
Right. Yeah.
It's real. And it's, even my siblings. So this is interesting about the nuance of diversity and identity is my siblings none of them identify as Latino. I'm the only one. I was the darkest kid.
No kidding.
Yeah, and this had kind of created a little, just not rupture or anything, but like struggle for them early on to feel comfortable with me starting a Latino-owned business because they don't identify as that. Because culturally, we didn't necessarily have it, but my experiences were different than theirs. I had things because I was a big brown kid growing up. Parents would stop baseball games and walk on the field and stop games until they saw my birth certificate and stuff.
Bullshit.
Swear.
At what age?
This was grade school, middle school.
Who's carrying their kid's birth certificate with them?
Well, we had to.
It happens once and then you don't make that mistake again? Or what?
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow.
Yeah. So I remember it was one of the first times I saw my mom get upset. And I was like, what's going on? I didn't know at the time, right? I was like, this is weird. And then I remember I went to another tournament. It was just, I went with the team. My parents weren't there. But we had a birth certificate specifically for that reason, and a parent stopped the game twice.
Are you pitching?
I was hitting. I hit a home run. I was 10 or something. They're like,
to
who is this big... There was one story of one Cuban kid who was 13 playing with 11-year-olds in the Little League World Series or something.
So from then on, every Latino family is trying to cheat or whatever.
Yeah, and so it was just shit like that.
Stopping games.
Yeah, and it happened at least 3 times that I can remember.
Wow.
And
always white people?
Yes.
Good job, white people.
Wow. But it was one of those things where I just took a little mental note, but I didn't think of much of it, but it's flagged in my memory, forever. And then as I got older, I was like, oh shit. As I started learning some stuff and realizing, oh, okay, I have had enough experiences where I was darker and stuff where, oh, I definitely got treated differently. And, and in grade school, I was Mexicali soup, I was the kid who wore the sombrero and all this stuff in school because I was the Mexican. And it's just stuff like that.
Is your grandma selling tamales this Christmas? What? No, dude.
And I ran with it, right?
Yeah.
I was I was eating it up, but at the same time, it's I didn't know. I just did it because I it got me attention. But it's just a lot of that stuff that you don't realize is I don't really know how to explain it. I guess it just, you're clearly different. And it's not necessarily a celebration of the differences.
Well, you're innocent. You're just, it got me attention, whatever, da. Doesn't take away from the fact that I hit a home run or whatever, sombrero. But then later, you're like, oh.
Yeah.
Like, if you were blonde hair, blue eyed, white kid, hit a home run, is that parent taking the field? I mean,
yeah, exactly. Oh, he's just a big kid.
He's just tall, man. They grow him tall over there.
Yeah. Well, what's in their water?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just some of that, and I don't know. And so my siblings never really had too many of those. Like, having the Mexican last name definitely brought some stuff, like in college, and there'd be joking and whatever for my siblings, but they didn't have quite the experiences that I had growing up, you know. Yeah, so I guess back to your original question. Grew up in Parkville.
Yeah. Third of four. Any idea how mom and dad met?
Yeah, in high school, in Northtown. They went to North Kansas City. They met in band.
Nice.
Yeah, a couple of band nerds.
Yeah.
And ironically, music wasn't really a big part of our family growing up.
Nothing put on to listen to in the home?
Stuff to listen to, yeah. So Billy Joel was big.
Yeah.
My mom loved Crosby, Stills, and Nash.
Okay.
For the brief time, it was Crosby, Stills, and Nash. A lot of oldies.
Yeah.
You know, it was a pretty Catholic family, so there was some music we weren't allowed to listen to, and TV and stuff, which, you know, you always find a way.
Yeah.
But Oldies 95, the radio station, was like pivotal. So listened to a lot. I just remember a lot of like Buddy Holly and you know, Ricky Valens, of course, with them. They're always associated now, but which I went to their site in the crash in Storm Lake, Iowa, where the plane crashed. There's a museum there. Yeah. But yeah, grew up with some of that oldie stuff.
Might be your phone.
Yeah, I think it.
Cool. Dink. Are you familiar with this cat? He's an artist. He has a studio in KCK.
Okay.
He did an episode not too long ago, and had a Richie Valens record on his list.
Oh, nice.
And I don't know. We talked a lot about music and a little bit about Richie Valens, but we also talked a lot about Sugar Skulls.
Okay.
And Coco. Have you seen this movie?
Oh yeah.
Okay. And there's a sequel coming out this summer, right?
Uh-huh.
And the Ofrenda, the altar for Dia de los Muertos. Super, super cool dude. He's very, like, a lot of his stuff is very slick and clean, and he's pretty active on the socials.
Okay.
And very interested in collaboration type stuff. Yeah. I don't know that you guys would ever have itches that the other could scratch, but definitely a cool dude to know.
Always.
But yeah, it was interesting to learn that he had never flown before, and he had, I think, reoccurring nightmares of being in a plane crash, and then wound up on that plane because of a coin flip, and then there you go, bam. I mean, I was like, what? And he was super young.
Yeah.
Like, made 2 records out the same year.
Yeah, a couple really big hits, and there's a good movie. I forget who the actor is. I'm forgetting now, but really good movie about his life and stuff. And, it was crazy. The museum there is interesting too. So cool music hall.
Pre-Oldies 95, 71 WHB.
Okay.
It was my mom. She had an 81 Toyota Tercel, and it was the vehicle to take us to practice in school and whatever else. And just an AM, the old push button, if you wanted a preset, you pull it out, and then, but it never moved from WHB. And it was just all oldies all the time, and it was insanely pivotal.
Yeah.
And
Beatles. And
stuff,
yeah.
a big mix of stuff. And, in hindsight, I think is a really good place to start. But eventually, we grow and get exposed to more things and develop our own tastes. What was that first step down that path like for you beyond Billy Joel and Oldies 95?
Yeah. I would say, I got into around grade school, elementary school, 6th, 5th, 6th, 7th grade. It was a lot of the poppy, like, I don't know. I remember Whitney Houston.
Sure.
And I had, I used to make my own little cassettes. I would like listen to the radio and you could record anything on it or CDs and stuff. And so I made my own little, I wish I still had them. Right. I could remember like my terrible handwriting on these little cassettes. And I had, Whitney Houston was big for me. Lauryn Hill and the Fugees and, man, I was all over the place.
Sure.
A lot of Savage Garden.
Interesting.
That was around that age group.
Yeah.
It was everything.
Yeah.
But my girlfriend told me about this article. I forget who wrote it. I think it was in NPR, and it talked about the pivotal years in your music experience, and it was ages 13 to 14.
Yep.
Really kind of defines the rest of your musical life. And it doesn't mean you won't explore and stuff, but it's really like, okay, what's the foundation?
Yeah.
And freshman, sophomore year going into high school, we had talked a little bit before, and it was high school for me. The school I went to wasn't the best experience for me personally in my creative side, but I used to go to like movies and stuff when I was able to in high school alone because I didn't really have the people to explore the art and the creative side. So I would like do a lot of stuff alone. There's one girl in particular I really connected with, and she introduced me to a lot of the art world much more, and I was really able to explore. But that was around the time where it was the Fray and one of the best movies for me was Garden State. And it had an outstanding album
soundtrack.
And who was it? Frou Frou and who was the lead singer of Broken Bells? Anyway,
asking the old guy,
But it was around that time, and there was Sigur Ross, and that was like the pivotal moment. I had a substitute teacher who I would talk music with, and he brought all these albums, the National I got introduced to, and so that kind of became my sound. I would say is a lot of that like indie alternative. Sure. Some singer-songwriter stuff.
Was there an album that you first heard or first bought with your own money or borrowed, or maybe it was that Garden State soundtrack? I don't know.
That was one of the early ones, at least in high school. But even before that, there's a few that like you have your embarrassing ones. I think one of them was like, oh man, Smash Mouth.
Okay. Sure.
Smash Mouth was the Satellite album.
Okay.
And at that age you're like into what the trendy stuff and trying to be cool, and that was on the radio and stuff. My brother, what always stands out, he was really into, and still we joke about it, but it was like jock jam stuff. It's like all that pump up, like high energy music, and I wasn't really into it, but he was really into listening to that, so that just like stands out in my element. Just ridiculous shit. But that stands out. But that was like the popular stuff at the time. So that middle school age was definitely the popular dances, like school dances started, and so girls, and so it was a lot of that kind of music that was in it, and I paid attention to. But high school was really where I discovered my
Yeah. Okay.
my identity, and I used to get like annoyed when other people listened to certain artists I thought I had discovered, and because the school was, for me, it was like so, I don't know, everybody was kind of the same and stuff, and so for me it was like I need to be different. We
Sure.
had uniforms, we had all this shit,
Yeah.
and I hated that, and I was like, where do I find myself?
Yeah.
And so I definitely like prided myself in the individuality and the music I listened to. And I think at the time LimeWire and all that, so I downloaded entire discographies of
Wow.
just, oh, I like them. MySpace was kind of big then,
For sure.
and so finding independent artists on MySpace was pretty big. Pandora was good then, when you could go through the algorithm and actually find like linked artists, and they could show you like the artist tree of genres. And so I was able to like go back through the algorithm and find artists, independent artists, small people,
Guys.
Tyrone Wells and Amos Lee before Amos Lee was big.
Okay. I remember putting so much stake in, because you're in MySpace, which was really weird.
Yeah.
Your top friends,
Yes.
like, ugh, if you're not. But also, you could put a tune. That when you go to your page, that tune starts playing.
Yeah.
That meant everything. 100% of people that come to my page are going to immediately think I'm cool because that's the.
Right.
What about shows? Did you catch any concerts at a young age?
Yeah. Let's see. My first real concert was, I think it was Incubus
Okay.
at in the River Market when they were still doing concerts.
Yeah.
And then there was Jack's Mannequin OAR.
Okay.
I think OAR was the headliner. And that's like, I just remember it was a crazy game of poker, like their biggest song, and it was just this kind of like little punky kind of, and and then I got into the singer-songwriter stuff and went to a lot of smaller shows. Went to Beaumont Club whenever I could sneak in there.
Nice.
I believe it was St. Patrick's Day, Dropkick Murphys.
Yeah.
They weren't playing in Boston for whatever reason. I was like, that's fucking weird. But snuck into that show.
Nice.
And that was crazy. That was my entry into like crazy rock, punk.
Moshing, aggressive.
Yeah, I was like, what is this? It was me and one other friend. And that I had kind of that rock punk thing. And I never got into punk too much, but I appreciated the shows and the concerts and everything.
So we talked a good bit about Rizoma Liquid Creations and El Sol and La Luna being they were in market, and now you have this awesome collaboration with Casey Beer Co. You're looking for a space. Is there what's the best way for somebody to keep a finger on the pulse of what's happening? Is there an email sign up? Is it just socials?
Yeah. So definitely the socials, and then if you go on our website, Rizoma Liquid Creations. I know that's kind of long. I'm working on getting a shorter one, but
It's fine.
RizomaLiquidCreations.com, and that's RIZOMA. You could go on and sign up for our emails. We don't send very much. As like right now, it's been like quarterly. But that's a good way where once we start developing more stuff, we'll definitely have reach out to our specific group of followers who are on that list, and you'll be the first to find out about certain things.
Cool.
And we'll still be asking. Probably we'll do some surveys, which I've done in the past. I really want feedback, and it's the people who do sign up. If you are interested, like, you guys really matter to us, and you'll really help us kind of
drive the direction or whatever.
Yeah. It just gives really good information, because if you're going to the work of signing up for an email and really interested, like, I know you're invested. Maybe not even financially yet, but it's like invested just to pay attention, and that matters. And I definitely, your guys' voice matters. So
Sure.
yeah.
So a couple things. Rizoma's story says sustainability, justly and equitably create quality and consistent products while using our platform to amplify voices and empower through effective community engagement and emotional storytelling, which we've talked about a good bit already.
Yeah.
But I mean, I thought that was really cool. I was like, man, there's sounds like it really feels like there's some good people behind it. But then there's a quote. We don't want the brand to necessarily define Latinism as much as make it a vehicle for exploring it. Edwing,
Yeah.
Edwing Mendez, creative director.
Yep.
And it's, I mean, those two things together, it's like, not to sound cheesy or anything, but like, how can you, in your heart of hearts, not root for something like that to succeed and thrive? And I wanted to commend the vision behind both of those notions, because not that big tech is the flagship of how things go, but quick turnaround and very low attention span as a culture these days, and it feels like there's you said just a minute ago, even if you're not financially invested yet, but you're invested in the story and here, like those are tough goals to and commendable. Like I absolutely think it's amazing, but it's same as doing a in-person long form podcast in the aftermath of COVID. It's like, who's gonna? I don't know, but that's what I'm gonna do. Hopefully, there's a thing,
right?
Whatever,
right?
I mean, so it's just really cool,
Thank you.
and I just hope, wish, long for that to get to other people.
Yeah.
And I think if it can get to people, it won't resonate with all of them, but it'll resonate with some of them. Definitely. And then that'll be one of the stories that somebody's telling their cousin about at the host stand while they're waiting to be sat.
Yeah.
I have this Rizoma beer, or saw the podcast episode, or had the food special at Casey Beer Co., whatever. Like, getting it to folks who are going to, accept the information and retain it on some level. Like, what a challenge.
Yeah, we get a ton of support. People are, good luck. Like, we're really rooting for you. I'm like, great. Right now I'm like, oh God, we need money, and that's hard. And it's a tough industry because it's a lot of stainless steel. It's expensive and hard. And there's definitely a lot of like privilege to the industry, which has been the lack of diversity, one of the reasons for it. But it's definitely something that I'm idealistic in some ways too. I'm like, I'm not willing to shift certain things because that's what will separate us from other people. But, I still really do appreciate, the support, the emotional support and stuff that people have is in you, you're like, okay, if there's having a conversation and just being able to talk about not just our brand, but something that's also not about beer, which I really appreciate. It's that all helps. And that excites me, is how our brand doesn't just tie to beer.
Right.
And it's not even, beer is just a way that brings people together. And that's how I see it. And I want to have conversations, and having long form conversations is great. And this format is maybe not for everybody, but for a lot of people, and they could appreciate it. And
no, they would rather us sit for 3 hours and then I choose, or somebody chooses what the best 15-second, you get 15-second thing and put it out there, and maybe you keep them from fuck all that. I don't.
Yeah. And actually one of the ethos that, of our brand, there's this saying in Spain, and it's a sobre mesa, and it literally means like over the table, but it's the the actual translation is like it's the conversation that happens after a meal when the real talk happens. You know, if you think of like family gatherings and everybody eats and then at the end you're just like shooting the shit around the table. It's that real conversation, that real talk that happens. And that's Sobra Mesa, and you'll see it in some of our hashtags and stuff, but that's one of our ethos is like, it's not about the alcohol. It's about the coming together and just talking and having real conversations and meaningful time together, meaningful interaction. And that's what I get excited about.
Yeah.
And
my buddy Ian, he was kind enough to do a very early episode, and is in a band and has been in bands, and just this notion of whatever, 4 people in a band, 5 you got to find a time that will work for all of those people and their families calendar, and then hopefully you're on time. And things can get underway, and hopefully it's a productive practice session or rehearsal or whatever it is, and then back to your and it winds up looking or feeling like going through the motions and not really putting anything into it. And so he said we learned very quickly that whenever we get together to practice or to rehearse, we start with a meal together. And we break some bread, and it really just soul nurturing. Have some conversation, have some nourishment, and then do the thing.
Yeah.
And I was so blown away by that most of the time, if I have a band member do an episode, I'll bring that up, and they're always like, "Whoa,
yeah,
that is a really good idea." I'm like, I think it's worth trying.
Yeah.
Like, even if you can make it happen once a month and there's 4 times you get together, like there's potential for some really cool bonding.
Yeah, and it just kind of brings the walls down a bit and allows for vulnerability and like honesty. And it's, one thing that's like a major pet peeve of mine is I say it's kind of the suburban mom talk, but it's the fake voice and that's nice. Like when you talk to people and you're like, I'm not getting the real individual at all. It's like they're just playing this like role or something. And I struggle with that. And I'm just like, I know I'm not getting the real person. I'm just getting somebody who's playing a role. And I hate that.
Yeah.
And it like turns me off of the person I'm talking to. I can't even with you right now. And I just think, who's the person though? Like,
right.
You probably like, who are you like with your hair down, no makeup? And I'm making this about women. It's not just women, it's men too. It's everybody. And it's like a meal and some time together and kind of like eating in front of each other can be a pretty vulnerable thing too. And it's just something like that, that people get through that vulnerable side, and then now you're spending time and it's like you're able to be real, and that's what I want. Like, I cut to real talk real quick.
Sure.
Like, let's talk about feelings.
If it doesn't work, it gets you out of my space, and I'll go about whatever I think.
Yeah, if you can't talk therapy about a therapist or something with me, then
this obviously has stuck with me, but the very first time I sat down to a meal with my ex-in-laws, I was in this phase where I'm right-handed, and I was eating with the fork upside down in my left hand, and cutting, and then I would lift the bite with the knife onto the back side of the upside down fork. Yeah. And I think we were at a wedding reception at like Lydia's or something. Okay. And my girlfriend's mom, at the time, she goes, "Oh, he eats like a ranch hand." And I was so like, still to this day, can't believe, and she's a fine lady, that those words came out of her mouth. Yeah. Just observing the way that I'm consuming this meal. Sound
like judgmental thing.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, And I thought, I was like, this is a cool writery thing,
Yeah.
you know, bohemian guy, like individuality. Like my MySpace page and the way I eat my chicken fried steak, whatever. It's like just cool.
Yeah.
And she just shot that out of the sky. I was like, God damn. Just put my fork in this hand and my knife down on the table now.
You're in this like existential crisis. Who
Yeah.
am I?
So, a couple things from the pitch article.
Okay.
Awareness of Hispanic identity while not speaking Spanish.
Yeah.
Growing up in Parkville as a minority. Service industry experience in Oregon that left, for lack of a better phrase, a bad taste in your mouth. And there was a comment about being emotional and crying in public.
I'm a big feeler. I'm a highly sensitive person.
So, again, like not my experience with Latin males. When it comes to the younger kids, I was a bilingual case manager in KCK for a few years, and like my caseload was almost exclusively, kids that were born here, but their parents came here undocumented from Mexico or wherever.
Yeah.
And so mom and dad are, basically zero English speaking abilities. So the kids run in the house. Like if the school needs to call home, kids translating, parent teacher conferences, kids translate. And it's like, the kid that's translating is who we're talking about.
Yeah.
So a lot of times develop this awareness that you can kind of mold the message a little bit and then, give it to mom and dad in a way that's probably not very upsetting to them or less upsetting.
Yeah.
And then that thing kind of grows.
They're doing a lot of adulting, like mature things beyond their age because of the position they're put in. Yeah.
And so one of the points in that is they speak Spanish and are fluent in Spanish because that's what's happening at home. But more or less outside of the home, they could give a shit. It's an English world society that they're navigating. It's helpful, because they have a thing that mom and dad don't have.
Yeah.
But and then again, the gender piece worked with a lot of Hispanic dudes that are 9 to 3. They're at this job, and 4 to 11 they're at this other job. And before they leave in the morning, they get up and they shower, and mom's job is to have his clothes cleaned and ironed and a hot meal on the table for him. And then a lot of times he's in that hour, he's zipping home and probably showering again and maybe closing his eyes for 10 minutes. But the expectation is that there's ready to eat, scratch made hot food. And then again, at the end of the day, like even if the household has gone to bed, my meal should be ready for me.
Yeah.
Wake up tomorrow, same thing. And so it's like, yeah, dad's working 2 jobs and bringing home the money, but mom is doing everything, child rearing,
raising the child,
shopping, cooking, cleaning, feeding. I mean, it's insane.
Yeah.
Just to try to think about where she finds the time in the day. And the men, like, with complete frankness and directness, happily state that is the arrangement. That's the way that it's going to go. And with that, like, there is no vulnerability. Yeah. There is no crying. There is no talking about emotions and therapy. And so, like, you're a very fascinating human being to me for more reasons than just those, but that being a lot of my experience. Minority in Parkville, but somehow, some way you were, I mean, did mom and dad say it's cool to be emotional, and it's cool to be vulnerable, and where does that come from?
Uh, I would say a good portion is nature, not nurture. It might so I'll say my dad grew up more actually in the Italian community. So his father's Mexican, his mother's Italian. They were married for a brief period, but ultimately, like my dad grew up with his mom, single mom, and they lived in my great grandfather's house with him, and so my dad's male figure was a Italian immigrant, um, owned a produce market and river market. But my dad had been working since he was like 12, like at it. And so it was just work, 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 work. And so I got instilled work. So when things get hard for me, I just work harder, which isn't necessarily the best thing. It's just what you do is just dig in deeper. And so I'm definitely in my relationships and stuff like, there are some things that I'm trying to unlearn, and it's but my dad was always work. He would work hard. He would work long hours and provided, and very grateful for all of that. But it was definitely, I would say, like in my family, it was roles. There was the male, you work and provide, and the mom took care. There were a lot of times my dad would be gone, and he traveled a lot, and and I'm not like, oh, I can't believe he did this. This is just what they knew, right? Um, and so it was, I would say, what you would expect of like a stereotypical Midwest suburban life is you have a provider and you have a caretaker. And with 4 kids, that's enough children that no one kid really got what they needed, per se. They got, it was like, how the best language around it is how do you like give the kids just enough, or aim for the middle, like the least controversial way, like food, or the least controversial way of handling things, so that not every kid got what they needed, but they got
Everybody's
enough,
getting enough,
just enough. But it definitely left for, I would say, a lot to be desired in terms of individual needs and stuff like that. And again, it's like there's no blame.
No.
It's just what they knew. And also, when you have 4 kids, like you could only do so much.
Yeah.
I have one, and I plan on only having one. And it because like she deserves the attention. Not all of it. I definitely don't want a child with only child syndrome.
Right.
And I'm dating a woman who's got 2 kids, and I want to be, I want to show that men aren't this emotionless thing. And there's some stuff where right now, in terms of just trying to make ends meet and other stuff, I'm definitely running up against the social norm of, oh, you need to be this macho male provider and do all this. Yeah, there's some things where I just need to make ends meet, and I'm struggling, and it's really fucking hard. And also, like, I'm a guy. I need to figure this out. I need to do this for everyone. And it's like, no, I need to do it because I'm an adult.
Right.
But it's not, it shouldn't be just a male thing or whatever. And I'm going to have a lot of feelings, and I'm not going to take it out on you. But I also have ADHD and depression. And so it's like, that's some stuff that I have to work through, go to therapy for. I've had a therapist for 5-6 years now that I go to regularly. And I like talking about therapy, and
but these are like, again, these are pretty significant deviations from the typical Latin male.
Yeah.
Like, we don't talk about feelings, we don't show emotions, We don't really even acknowledge that
Yeah.
therapy is a thing that exists in the world. So,
Yeah,
I mean, and this
ironically,
is a good thing that you have these things, but like,
where did it come from?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, I guess I
You're
still
good.
avoided that question.
You're good.
But no, I think it just came from like, being able to go to college in particular, and art and music and stuff is like, I knew there was more and bigger for me. And I knew I wasn't getting the things that I needed. And this ties in music really well, actually. But I really connected to the music a lot, listening to music, and I like would just obsess over stuff. But I also believe we operate according, like, we have our own rhythms, and we really connect to music that either aligns with our rhythm or is the opposite. So, for example, because of my anxiety and my ADHD and stuff, like I picture things in like a really high frequency,
Oh, wow.
like fast, kind of twitchy almost.
Like
And
the intro to the Wonder Years. You remember
yeah,
that show?
yeah, and so and I'm like, I listen to a lot of really chill music because I'm like trying to bring that frequency down and that edge, like chill that edge off. And so I really connect to like slower music and stuff because I'm like, I know for myself, trying to align with that and slow down. It's this like co-regulation almost.
Interesting. Yeah.
But I think people really connect to music that kind of aligns with their rhythm or the inverse.
Episode 50, Steph Rupp, who designed my logo and built the website for me, had a lot of, and she's, just, nice seeming. I mean, again, when she came to do the episode, we'd been emailing more than weekly for over a year, 2 years. So I'd never met her before. And her list was aggressive, high energy shit.
Yeah.
Like, and it blew me away. I was like, I never would have. And I was like, what do you think that is about? And she goes, I think that it's just, I know those emotions are in me and they exist.
It's the outlet.
I want to get them out.
Yeah.
And then I can go back to regular life opera. And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
That's fucking nuts.
And so listening to certain music, you listen to certain music when you're studying or whatever. I can't listen to music with lyrics when I'm studying.
Right.
That's where post-rock comes in for me.
Yeah.
But you listen to certain music because your body, you do have I believe, and know, it's science that you do have a rhythm in your body. You're really aligning to certain stuff, as well as then the lyrics come in and other stuff. But for me, like a strong bass, like if I could feel it, again, this is post-rock's one of my most listened to genres, because rock is very emotional, but also very strong, heavy bass in some of these songs. And like, I could feel it in my chest, and that like I could get emotional just listening to it. Caspian is one of my favorite bands, but yeah, it all ties in. And so anyway, that, back to the original question, listening to music kind of unlocked a lot of that emotional side for me. Cool. Where I was like, oh, I'm feeling all these feelings. I get really emotional. I have all these things. I can't show it in high school or at my school with my friends because no one's really connected to that. I'm going to these movies by myself, all these indie films, all this. I would go to art shows either with this girl or by myself, and like unlocking a lot of that. And then when I went to college, I kind of struggled a little bit in high school. Not terrible. I was like a 3.0 student or something, but like fine.
Yeah.
And then in college, I started getting involved in more clubs and diversity club and leadership stuff. And I started thriving because I was able to be more vulnerable.
Sure.
And find the people that I like. It just felt safe to be able to connect with these people. I like
that idea of unlocking.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And,
one more thing, and then I want to break real quick, and then we'll get into your list.
Oh, okay.
The term Latinx.
Yes.
It's on the website. It was in the pitch piece.
Yeah. It's divisive.
Elaborate, please.
So Latinx kind of came from it. I would say it's like an education term, and so it has this perception of pretentiousness, because there's Latino, Latina. Latinx is a way of including some of those people that maybe who don't identify as male, female, whatever, and also racially look different. It's just like it was an attempt to be more inclusive of all the nuance in between gender and the masculinity of or patriarchal language. But for people who are traditional Spanish rigid people in particular, it's almost an offense to some people.
Precisely why I brought it up. 'Cause
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I understand why that exists. And then it's like every time I turn around in my tiny little lens of the podcast universe, Latin folks are like, get that shit out of here. The fuck is not all,
Yeah,
some.
yeah, some. And it's funny because it's I don't even know what language to use sometimes, and most times, because I'm like, yeah, I'm Latino, I'm Hispanic, I'm Mexican, I'm Latinx. It kind of depends on who I talk to. But we did a little survey. We had another brand. We were kind of before Rizoma. It was Las Banderas,
Okay.
which is flags. And so we were similar story, trying to talk about identity. And if you could paint your flag, what would your flag look like? Where are you on the spectrum of Latinism? Are you Mexican, or are you this, or where are you on the American spectrum, or and we did a survey and just trying to see, how do you identify, where, what are your labels? And man, there's like a million different ways. Latino, Latina, Latinx, Hispanic, Chicana, Chicano, Mexican American. I am Mexican, Panamanian. Like, Puerto Ricans are Puerto Ricans. And so there's so much nuance in all this, and it's really hard. I hate to put anyone under an umbrella. And I know Latinx can turn some people off. I just don't know the term. It almost feels there's no term, and Hispanic is a government term that they just put brown people who speak Spanish under one umbrella. But a Colombian is not a Venezuelan. And if you know the history between the two countries and indigenous people and everything else, like, there's a lot of struggle between them, and these people don't want to be put in the same box, and that's what the government has done. And so there's just a lot of nuance under there. And so Latinx is one that I know we risk pissing some people off or annoying people or whatever. I'm like, there's no one way to say it. So oftentimes, like, in a conversation, I'll say, without thinking, I'll be like, yeah, we're a Latinx company, or I'm a Latino, and this and that. And I'll like throw out 4 different terms in an entire interview or something. And kind of without thinking, and also
Being mindful.
Yeah. And it's like, yeah, it's when, I don't know, there's no right way.
No, there's not. And like I said, when I saw it, when I first came, I was like, that makes sense. But at the same time, as somebody who's been speaking Spanish for 30 years, whatever, I've always understood, and it's, English doesn't have this because it's a weird hybrid of, Latin and German. I mean,
there's no rules.
So
in English,
living room, la sala, right? It's feminine. That's a feminine article and a feminine object.
Yep.
And they have to match. That's because that's the rules of the language. El trabajo, the job. It's, again, masculine. It hasn't nothing to do with gender. These are just the rules inside the language. And you get weird ones like dia and tarde. Always throw me la tarde and el dia. I'm like, what? What's that? And then, it's weird to, okay, here's this new term that's not specifying one or the other. And it's
Yeah.
like, but having masculine articles and objects and feminine articles and objects match in the language never had anything to do with
Yeah.
male or female. It's just the rules of the language.
Yeah.
The same way that, Los Chicanos
Yeah.
can mean a group of Chicano boys, or it can mean a group of Chicano boys and girls.
Yeah.
There's all these nuances to that
Yeah.
language. So that was my experience. Was, what is it? Oh, okay,
Yeah.
I understand. And
And
then it's like, no. And then I see other folks like same deal. Like some are like, cool, glad we did it, and some are like, get that shit out of here.
Yeah, and I think it's more, and this is just my perspective, and it just seems it's more because of how masculine and how patriarchal society is, especially within, we'll say, the Mexican community, that it's also like people are trying to regain some power in it, where it's like, just take away some of that patriarchal stuff, that masculinity, and the language just kind of reinforces it in some ways. And so it's like trying to create some power within it.
Man, again, the service industry, males, you show a little bit of emotion or whatever, and it's not only like,
or it's just anger.
Well, so if you say, you're vulnerable or you express some emotion, not only do you get a reaction from the individual, they're going to circle the wagons and bring everybody and be like, look at this. And I have lots of examples of that, but the biggest of all was when I told a local restaurant owner who was actually in the kitchen working on something at the time, and there's a very busy place, so very full staff, largely male, that I had a vasectomy on the books. And he was like, what in the like, that's a thing, like in real life, like, and she's making you do that? And it's like, no, we both want to make sure that no more children, and so he started calling, I can't remember what it is, but
same here.
He started calling me capon, which is I don't remember the animal, but it's like it's a neutered whatever donkey or
Gotcha.
hen, whatever it is. It's known for being like
castrated.
Yeah. And in Spanish, te mocharon or te van a mochar, cut your balls, like, and that's the only way that is described, be it present, future, past tense. It's the cutting off of the balls. And it's like, you do know that that's not actually, there's not a guy that just grabs scrotums with a switchblade and then gauze and you shove you out the door. It doesn't actually, but like, and it was a spectacle, and dozens of fellas, it was almost like that, ha ha ha, like, and it was just like, wow. I mean, you also,
well, I commend you for that. That's nice.
But it was hilarious. It was like, I'm sensitive, so I was like, oh, but at the same time, I wanted to be like, you do realize that, like, all of you have 2 jobs and like 6 kids, and you're struggling. So if you take a little bit of a pivot here, and maybe your struggles are less if you only have 4 kids instead of 6. I don't know, but all of the ridicule is at me for like voluntarily signing up for this thing. It was so profound.
Yeah, that's definitely a cultural difference there for sure. It's it's part of the society, I guess. Is definitely like a lot of kids is a big one. My Mexican side, my grandfather had 13 brothers and sisters, and it was just.
I'm going to hit the restroom again, and we'll get to music and get you out of here.
Anyway,
we're back.
Part of my life.
Yeah. So thank you again for not only being here, but sharing your list with me. We touched on Oldies 95 and Billy Joel and some other artists. But as far as high school goes, you listed the following: REM.
Yeah.
who had 15 studio albums from 83 to 2011. How were they important to you?
So they were, I would say, like, they were before my time, but me getting into indie alternative rock, stuff like that, I kind of dove a bit into their history and you know, I couldn't tell you specifically albums right now, but it's one of it was my girlfriend, her dad was obsessed with REM.
Oh, wow.
But this was after I had kind of discovered, but it was a really good entry into like the history of like alternative rock. And REM then became kind of more mainstream and definitely a few of their later albums, but that early on they were garage band. They were, you know, a lot of East Coast like punk and other kind of the underground scene.
Yeah.
And so I really just loved that culture.
Yeah.
And they popped up in a lot of the algorithms, I would say, and other stuff, but that just kind of got me into The National was a really good inspiration coming off of REM. And it just they were just a really easy entry point to get into like 10 different genres.
Sure.
Because some of the early stuff too is like super bluesy at times. And then also in high school I did this I can't remember the type of essay we wrote, but it was maybe informative, and I ended up just doing an entire report on Kansas City jazz.
Oh, cool.
And before I knew it, I like dove into like where Kansas City jazz influenced then like the tree of influence throughout American music.
Nice.
And so I just dove into, I listen to a ton of jazz now. And I couldn't tell you artists and stuff. I just put on my playlists that are curated for me now. But I just, it gave me appreciation. It was like REM was a good start to get into other things. Then I did that report, and then it just tied in the next genre. And,
cool.
And before I knew it, especially late high school, I would spend hours just researching music and
I love it.
Geeking.
Yeah. Seeger Rose, which I think is the pronunciation for.
Yeah, I've heard. I know when I say it, I'm like, I'm sure it's wrong.
Icelandic post-rock with 8 albums spanning 97 to 2023. All of their stuff or a particular portion for you?
Some of the earlier albums, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce them, but
fair.
It's kind of that psychedelic, spacey.
Oh yeah,
indie, post-rockish at times and other stuff, but Jonsi, the lead singer of the group, he went out on his own too, but it was just a very artistic and spacey genre. And actually one of like the first outer body experiences I ever had was listening. We were on a family vacation. I just had to get away, so I went on. It was at a beach. It was in Florida. Beautiful outside, and just like put my headphones in and listen to this music. And it was like the first real time where I was like able to finally like get into my body and like be present fully. And I could just like picture, I could like see me sitting there on the beach, like looking out, and it was listening to one of their songs.
Wow. No mushrooms were involved.
No mushrooms. Okay. No mushrooms. And not this time. But
right.
It definitely, that like experience really like, I dove more into that around that time, but it's always been a part of playlists and other stuff or similar genres and kind of the deep spirituality I get from that. And I think one of the things is when I talk about the rhythm is I really listen to slower or some of that music because it pulls me out of the twitchy, like high frequency, tension I feel in life.
Yeah.
And it's just an attempt to like regulate.
Yeah.
And so I know that experience definitely pulled me closer to, or allowed me to open up more about, I notice this about myself and I get more vulnerable and everything. It just allowed me to explore more of that vulnerability.
Right. Cool.
Yeah.
We touched on the national American indie rock out of Cincinnati with 10 albums, 2001 to 23. Any details about them that we left out, or?
No, all of that that was a time frame of like the exploration, but I think it was the Alligator album, and I think it was Alligator. But they had a couple albums around that time that really just that deep voice and a good, not too complex instrumental, but it was like a very
akin to REM.
Yeah, just very like powerful lyrics and it always, that is definitely, when I think of the 13, 14-year-old age, that was one of the pivotal. I still listen to a ton of music, or when I find new music, I know that
can connect the dots. Yeah. Your list got a little more specific from there. We'll start with 2004's Sunrise Over the Sea, John Butler Trio. Third of 7, 14 tracks, 71 minutes, an Australian roots rock band that was important to you in college. How did they wind up in your lap, and why is this one special for you?
John Butler, he is a total like hippy dippy Australian type of musician who he does the banjo, gets a little bluegrassy and stuff at times, but I think it was in college that was like my exploration in kind of the hippy dippy side of music, and very like, it could be really lighthearted. He definitely got political.
Oh, okay.
And so it was getting into the real content of just the outside world that I like connected with.
Interesting.
He also has a song, I don't think it was on this album, but instrumental guitar. He played on a 12-string, and he had like the long fingernails, finger picking, and I'd seen him in concert 7 times.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's Red Rocks and
nice
a couple of times, and kind of all over. But his music, it just had really good positive lyrics and stuff too, and I was definitely into like the clap and stomp kind of alternative bluegrass kind of stuff.
Cool.
There's the Mumford, but
yeah.
I wasn't super into Mumford. I was into like the more indie Mumford.
Gotcha.
And he was one of those for me. And there's like Xavier Rudd is another one who's an Australian. He would play like barefoot didgeridoo, the steel guitar on his lap, and
cool.
I was totally into like the Aussie hippie type music.
Nice.
There's a whole scene, like a whole Aussie hippie scene.
Wow, I had no idea.
Yeah.
That's cool. An 8-year leap ahead, Stranger by Balmorhea.
Yeah.
6th of 10 tracks, 53 minutes, a 6-piece minimalist instrumental ensemble out of Austin, Texas, with 9 LPs and an EP. This one features a track called Masolan,
Masolan,
which is beautiful.
Right.
And you mentioned post-divorce as a sort of side note. What's the story there, and with this record in general?
Post-divorce, so moved back to Kansas City, had my daughter, my wife.
From Oregon?
From Colorado, actually. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, not like 2-3 weeks after being back, she was like, I need space. Took my daughter, like she wasn't like, oh, you can't see her or anything, but my daughter was really young, so she's gonna go with the mom. But so I ended up moving in with my parents, and that didn't feel good. Moving back there, and then
failure.
Yeah. So I was living in the basement, deep depression and all this stuff, and found this this group, and it just it's an instrumental. They span from post rock to more, could be almost classical at times, but the song Massillon is very, it just like hits me, and it like it's one of those ones that like gives me chills sometimes still, and but it has times where it gets lighter and more positive, and then down and slower again, and then up and light and positive, and it just kind of I think for me is like I attached my, like, I needed something light, or I needed something to get my emotions out when I was alone, and this like really encapsulated the ups and downs and stuff, and it just yeah, I mean, thinking about it right now, like I could feel myself almost welling up. But
Wow.
it's just, it ties to a really difficult time
Sure.
in my life, and
Sure. Might have been medicinal for you at some point.
yeah. I had just really started therapy then, and a lot of self-reflection and self-work
Sure.
and stuff came in during then. But Balmorhea is always my number one artist for the last like 5 years on Spotify when they do the rewind
rap or whatever. Yeah.
They've always been my number one. 'Cause I would go to sleep listening to them.
Okay.
A lot of my concentration music, or I just need to like chill out in my car for 5 minutes. I would like
Ground yourself
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
Get you back to zero.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
yeah.
Nice. 1 year leap ahead to 2013. Pedestrian verse. Frightened Rabbit.
Oh,
Fourth of 5, 12 tracks, 42 minutes. Scottish indie rock that you labeled as, I'm guessing, a source of support across a mental health journey.
yeah.
Please tell me about that and this record.
So the lead singer, I'm drawing on a blank right now because there's pressure, but
That's all good.
he actually 4 years ago killed himself.
Damn.
But so much of his music was his journey with depression.
Okay.
And he's got this is one of the albums I came out when I really I'd actually been listening to him for about, I don't know, at this point 10 years, something like that, but Scottish, I believe. And he is well known for like the deep hitting lyrics and just the heavy content, but it's, if you really want to listen to, I would say he wasn't trying to hide anything, but it was clear the journey that he was on, and especially with myself and discovering, at the time I didn't think I knew I had depression when I first heard it, but I was like totally like, oh shit, I get it. And there's another one called like Death Dream, and another album that he talks about his dreams and how he dreams of his own death and all this stuff. And it's heavy stuff, but musically it's all really well done. But this was a really good entry into me finding the words for the depression and the things that I was feeling. There are other music that we've talked about that brought my awareness to my emotions, but this artist in particular in this album really brought the language forward that I needed.
Oh my God, it had to feel fulfilling.
It did,
sense.
and like a huge punch to the stomach at times, and then
Because, there's something wrong with me. That's what it is.
yeah,
Or you're just a human experiencing some human shit.
exactly. Or it's like, oh, okay, I'm not crazy.
Helpful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so one thing I did find with therapy and just being able to talk about it was comfort in knowing I'm not the only one. And this isn't unique. Comfort in knowing I'm not unique in that way. And so that gave me a lot more like peace of mind.
Cool.
I still have plenty of shit to work on, and as we all do, yeah. But I highly recommend listening to Frightened Rabbit. And there's another song on a previous album is called "Keep Yourself Warm," and some of his lyrics are it's pretty visual, but um, you don't need to fuck a hole to keep yourself warm. And he's just talking about like you don't need and there's some other content in it, but it's like you don't need to take drugs, and having sex isn't the way to support yourself,
right?
What you need, that doesn't actually give you the things you're looking for. But he just like hits you deep, and I'm like, explore. But I really encourage people to listen to him if you're like for the heaviness, and I don't know, I find comfort in it. Some people are like, that's too much.
Sound of Change, Dirty Heads, 2014, 4th of 9, 11 tracks, 39 minutes. Reggae rock band out of Huntington Beach, California. Title track is especially important to you, which, by the way, was very uplifting to listen to and had the label Brewing School attached to it. Would you please tell me that story?
Yeah, so Dirty Heads, total like stoner music, but I actually had never listened to them before or even heard of them before Brew School, and I was talking to a buddy. I was like, I need some new music. Can you give me something? He was like, oh, look up the Dirty Heads. And Sound of Change was kind of my anthem at that time. It was, I had just had some injuries from rugby and some other stuff, and really diving into my craft beer career, and going to brew school was like this like fresh stars, already kind of figuring shit out about myself and marriage.
And brew school was where?
Started a few months in Chicago and then a few months in Germany.
Okay.
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah. And so the Sound of Change, there's I actually want to get a tattoo still, and it's they're deaf to the sound of change, and they're talking about people don't see you and what's shifting in you and all this stuff, and people are busy looking at you and expecting one thing, but you're changing, you're making a difference, and it is a very uplifting song, and I appreciate that you listen to this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
full disclaimer, if there's an album on your list that I've listened to 1,000 times, I don't need to. I know it really well, but if it's, that's the only caveat, you know.
Gotcha.
If I've never heard it before, I'm sitting down with it.
Yeah. And so the Sound of Change was just a really positive, like, I'm gonna do my shit. I'm gonna move forward. I've got a lot of positive things ahead of me. I'm gonna focus on, and it's kind of like, I'm gonna do my thing, and like fuck the rest.
Yeah, this is funerals, especially if it's somebody that was close to you, and divorce. Folks come around, and they're here, and then they're gone, and they're right back to. And the next time they see you, it's almost this expectation of like, you're back doing regular shit too, right? Because that's what we all did. We went back to, and it's like, no, I'm still trying to figure some shit out, or I'm moving in a different direction, or whatever. But often in even in life's biggest moments, people are busy and they don't see you know what you have going on, what you're experiencing, what you're trying out. I mean, it's as connected as we are, it's still a very lonely world in a lot of ways.
And I would definitely say, like, part of my depression and stuff definitely is just a baseline of like this loneliness always. And so a lot of my music, I think, is like, there's something around the lonely that, like, so much of this music that I listen to, whether it's instrumental or not, like, it either taps into that feeling of loneliness, and I can kind of sulk in it a little bit and just be in it, which isn't a bad thing. It's like, you need to feel it.
Because then afterwards you go, oh, that's what I was doing right
there. Yeah,
and
exactly.
It's like the... whatever it is, after you cry and all of these things come rushing in, and you're happy, or your sorrow has subsided a little bit, and it's like you need for that thing to happen in order to go, Whew, I was really sad there for a sec.
Yeah, yeah, and it's the knock the dam down to let the things flow, and so yeah, and Dirty Heads is a really good
Nice.
Stoner music sometimes really helps.
Yeah. So this next one, I might be off, but here's what I have. Origin by Kris Bowers, who's credited in 2023, an original motion picture soundtrack that maybe features a tune called I Am by Stan Walker. Australian-born New Zealand singer with 7 studio albums, but this track, great spirit to it, is perhaps part of a score to a film that is based on the life of Isabel Wilkerson. Is this...
Yeah. So more than anything, it's the song. The film actually is a really heavy film. It's based on a book written by Isabel Wilkerson. Who it's called
The Warmth of Other Suns.
No,
the epic story of America's Great Migration.
So she wrote that
in 2010.
Yeah,
and then there's
Caste. Is the book.
Okay.
So Caste is the book she wrote about how American society is a caste system, and the racial divide is a caste system based on race that was worked on and perfected from centuries of white, but English in particular, colonization and then perfecting it and then bringing it to the United States, which the book I had to take in chunks because it was so heavy.
I'm sure.
Because some of the examples of stuff that she would talk about that actually happened, black people going into a white-only pool and then them having to drain the entire water. And, just examples in this movie is really heavy. It talks about her journey, and they depict some of these stories that actually happened in real life. And so it's a really heavy movie, but extremely powerful and brings the reality of, I'm sure this book is banned in Florida.
Good old Florida.
And Texas and all those horrible places. But
you called this Stan Walker track The Drive for Rizoma.
Yeah. So I listened to this song when I first heard it 3 months ago. So he's this artist. He's indigenous.
Is fresh.
Yeah.
I guess it's 2023.
Yeah. So he's indigenous Maori from New Zealand.
Yeah.
And a lot of he's also very Christian. So some of his music gets a little gaudy, which isn't my jam. But he's got one of the most amazing voices and very rich in Maori culture. And one of his things is just trying to find any way to bring Maori culture to and elevate it and educate. And his song is he's wearing traditional garb and all this stuff. And there's a YouTube video, the soundtrack or the music video for this. He wrote it for the movie. When I see indigenous culture and all this stuff in mainstream music, it really, it gives me this desire for belonging. And I think that's one thing, the loneliness that I talk about and stuff is with the beer company is I'm really trying to build this community, in just a place where I belong. And when I see indigenous culture, it's hundreds of years in tradition, and it's the sense of belonging that I don't necessarily have. And so I long for that. And when I listen to this song and see the music video, it is so heavy for me. I was bawling my eyes out because I'm I wish I had that. I wish I had that sense of identity where I have a centuries old identity that I can really belong to. And because I'm kind of, I'm part German, Italian, Mexican, but I didn't grow up culturally with very much of any of it. It's one thing I wish I had. And it
definitely got to check out Dink's episode.
Yeah.
I mean, just talking about culture from culture and being an artist from the age of 5, being like, oh, that was the missing piece.
Yeah.
That is who now I can go. That defines me.
Yeah.
A million other reasons why his episode was fantastic, but
no, that's good. I definitely wrote them down, and that's like, you know, when I was finally comfortable enough to say I am Latino, I am Hispanic, Latinx, Chicano, like whatever, like I want it. It gives me more of a sense of belonging, but I still have this kind of imposter syndrome, because there are gatekeepers and there are, oh, you're not this or whatever, and it's my own shit that I put on myself. But it, I don't know. If you see that song, it is a powerful, it's a powerful song, and it's a very powerful video.
cool.
And I hope you go out there. It's I Am by Stan Walker. And his voice is just like unbelievable.
Nice.
And the dude actually doesn't have a stomach. So he has this gene where his family gets stomach cancer, and like 25 people in his family over the last like 4 generations have died from it. And he removed his stomach to prevent the cancer from spreading to other places. So he basically, it just goes esophagus to intestine. And so it's pretty crazy. And for him to go through what he did, and there's a little documentary on YouTube that he put out, but it's incredible. But yeah, anyway, I could talk about that.
That's
a
cool.
lot. But belonging is like the biggest drive for Rizoma, is to create a space, not just for me, but for people to have a sense of belonging and a place to be. And that's my motivation.
In our messaging and a couple times here tonight, post-rock, you've brought up post-rock, and when we were communicating, you listed it as a genre that equals emotional support. And I wondered if you could elaborate on that.
Yeah, so I think most people know post-rock from, like, it's really good soundtrack music.
Okay.
So there are a lot of movies and artists or bands who do soundtrack music, but post-rock, to me, rock is just, I think I said it earlier, is a very emotional genre, and a broad genre.
Yeah.
But it's one where I could listen to just about anything, and also there's psychedelic post-rock, there's all these different genres within it, but I just, it grounds me in many ways, and there are enough albums that I know now and artists that I know where I go to where I'm feeling a certain thing, and I don't need lyrics. That post-rock is always there, and definitely my top 1 or 2 genres when it comes to, you know, the end of Spotify.
Yeah,
the
rap.
Yeah, I will say I really have appreciated that more and more, because I could go deep, and I downloaded, they have a statistic app or a stats app that you could get even more, and I could totally nerd out with analytics.
Yeah.
But it's fun to just kind of see, this month I was really heavy in this. I know what happened during that month, but post-rock is always there. I could go to sleep to it when I'm working, when I'm in the zone.
Yeah.
It's like an intense, it incites intense feelings in any direction.
Okay.
But there's an intensity to the post-rock genre that I think can elicit my tension I feel in my body, but still be like a calm tension, or what do I want to say, like a high like frequency tension, but there's something in there with the tension of rock that my body responds to.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And nice to have an awareness of what that is.
Yeah. I think the mind-body connection is definitely strong. I try to pay very close attention. I think music is one of the best ways to like connect your mind-body.
Well, it's really good stuff, and thanks again for sharing. I like to wrap with a series of goofy questions.
Great.
We'll get you out of here. So the first is, if we can agree that we all, in some capacity, have a personal and a professional bucket list, right? So let's say you're given all the necessary resources to go knock out number one on both of those lists, and sometimes they're the same thing. Is there a number one, or are there number ones for you personally and professionally in a bucket list sense?
Bucket list. Yes. So the brewery is definitely one, but how beer is connected international. I love traveling. Dopamine is hard to get for me, so traveling is one of the main dopamine hits. It's being out of my element and being in a place and having to learn and like try to fit in and by learning culture, food, all that type of stuff. I love that. And so with beers, like if I have the beer company, is there a way I can utilize that to go and travel and explore beer and food in different places? And or total dream bucket list is open up a brewery internationally.
Oh shit! Wow.
And one right off travel, but also like I would love to do one like in Germany. I have family cousins there too, and so it's like if I could do a brewery in Germany, get my EU passport one day, and then be able to like work and
I got to zip over to France real quick.
yeah, exactly. And I'm gonna write it off because I'm gonna go talk to somebody for 2 minutes and then see the rest.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the dream. Is like, man, create a brewery here and create another brewery there. Long-term, beautiful vision. You know, once you hit the jackpot, that's the dream.
Nice. You're able to have lunch with anybody you're choosing, dead or alive. Who is it and why?
Oh golly, who is it and why? I don't know. Oh man. I would say am I allowed to have a weapon?
Sure, yeah.
This sounds crazy, but Hitler.
Okay.
And here's why. I am fascinated by what the fuck got him. So before he gets, maybe when he's in college, and be like, where are you at? You know, try to figure things out, and then kill him afterwards. But I don't know, and it might be because I've been on a series of watching like World War II shit, and I'm like in this zone. But I am fascinated on how somebody could get to that ego
level of ego, yeah.
and drive, and to know how to manipulate people so much, like the best order, you know, like he was the best speech giver, one of the best ever in history, because he was able to get this horrible narrative to be believed by millions, right? Yeah. And so it takes this, I mean, if you see his speeches, like they're studied by people, because he would lose pounds of sweat and all this stuff. It is fascinating. He was a horrible person.
Sure. You've seen, Inglourious Bastards.
Oh yeah.
There's a scene with him. He's free. I always thought that was like overdone.
Oh, there's some.
But maybe that's a good representation.
Yeah. I mean, it was pretty incredible. Like, yeah, it's just crazy. But I guess I'm just like so curious about, you know, if he was open, and then kill him.
Yeah.
But it's like, I'm just fascinated by people like that.
Yeah.
And good and bad.
Yeah.
And just somebody who's so convicted. And he must, I'm fascinated by how the brain works and how people function. And like, he must have believed this so much. And there must be some, I don't know, something was going on with him, some like autism or something, that he was like just so driven to this one thing. Yeah. But he was a savant.
By the way, if you kill him, like, you might eliminate the existence of a lot of people that you know or have heard of. I mean, lots and lots of things. Now it saves
It's true.
6 million Jews.
What is it? The glass door,
Yeah,
the sliding
yeah.
door, or whatever it
Yeah.
is, or butterfly effect, same thing.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it just delays something that would have happened anyway.
Right,
Who knows?
right.
But
You're given the ability to visit your past self at any age.
Mm-hmm.
What age are you choosing, and what are you saying?
I think, I'm thinking back to our conversation, like some of the pivotal stuff and music and everything. And I think of the lack of creativity I got in the time when I think I needed it. Maybe 8th grade,
Okay.
Damon. And like, I don't know exactly what I would say, but something along the lines of like you need to be in the creative outlet. I actually drummed for about a year.
Okay.
And I kind of hit the plateau of, I knew I was going to a school that didn't have a music program. I like drums, but I was losing motivation because I kind of hit the plateau of like the drum set where my feet and my hands weren't connected, and either you practice a lot and get better or you stay the same.
Yeah.
And I hit that plateau and I didn't really have that motivation. And I think that was a lost opportunity for me to really explore the creative side and maybe dive into that more. And so I think I would feed that to 7th/8th grade Damon. Explore this. You really love it. It's a good avenue, and sports isn't the only thing.
Complete this for me, please. The world would immediately become a better place in which to live if only
People were able to turn the mirror on themselves and identify how their actions and behaviors can impact the people around them.
I love it. True or false? It's okay and acceptable to wear the T-shirt of the band whose show you're going to.
Oh, it's acceptable.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, of course. Maybe only I say that because I do that.
Yeah. I mean, hey.
Not all the time.
Right.
But
Damon Arredondo.
yes, sir.
Rizoma Liquid Creations.com is the site. Facebook, Instagram. Where else?
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't do the other shit because
Sure.
it's stressful.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
I am going to be eagerly awaiting the news of the next thing.
Yeah.
A partnership, a spot, whatever the next phase looks like. Because I love, the pieces of what the vision of the thing is supposed to be about. The world needs more of that. And I'm all for supporting somebody and their endeavor when it is, coming from a good place and also essentially commanding good, positive outcomes and interactions with others, from others, and so forth. So
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean,
It means a lot.
if I had a bag of money to give you, I would, but I don't.
Me too.
I need one. I need one of those myself.
Don't we all? Yeah, such is the economy in the world. We live in.
Right, but whatever it is, the next thing, the next collaboration, the next piece of news for Rizoma, which is Rizoma, I'm going to be stoked to hear about it. So,
Thank you.
Thanks for the time. I know that's a
course.
very valuable asset for any person in 2024, let alone an entrepreneur, a business owner, a parent,
Yeah.
all of which you are. So I appreciate you.
Thank you. Appreciate the time and the support.
Yeah. See ya.
Ooh, that was good, man.
Thank you.
Thank you.